Welcome to the Fox Sports Podcast. As this season, where the NRL's had to find a way to keep the game going, or as Peter V'landys said, face financial catastrophe, is getting towards the end. I've got to say, I think the standard of football the players have produced is the best I've seen for a long time. And, you know, it's been amongst administrators having the guts to make some crucial adjustments to the rules of the sport. Now, there's been a lot of talk going into this season that there'd be an asterisk attached to the premiers. I think they couldn't be more off the mark. In fact, I think this Final Four this weekend will be the best in memory. And Paul Kent, Steve Blocker, Roach, how you going, boys?
Good, mate.
Matthew.
Final Four this weekend.
How are you going to pick a winner out of Melbourne and the Raiders?
It's tough, isn't it? And even the other game, Blocker.
Yeah.
You've got two different styles of team, but very hard to pick the winner. And I'll tell you, the rules of the game, the adjustments in the rules of the game, it had the desired effect because the four teams that have got there, well, it could be argued, but that I think play the best style of football.
Yeah, look, the only one I'd argue probably should be there. I love what the Roosters were doing midway through the season before they started to get knocked around with injury. But you're right, Matt, and we've all commented on the final series so far how many points have been scored. But the one thing about when there's a lot of points, if the points are going each way and there is still some resilience in your defence, which there is, you're okay with that. It's not like it's just turned into touch football and one team's basically waiting to get the ball back so they can go and score a try. So I think the rules have been magnificent. I would actually like now, I know we're going to go into a shortened off-season, but I would actually like to see them tinker a little bit just with the interchange now, to ramp it up a bit more.
Double down on it.
Yep.
Peter V'landys, and everyone's spoken a lot about him. He's almost been canonised. But he's shown himself to be one of the world's great sporting administrators. If you look at what he's done in racing, we're coming up this weekend, we've got the Everest, and what he's done for Sydney racing has been incredible.
See what he did just this weekend to get more crowds in?
Oh, mate.
In a week. He gets it done.
He does. But, you know, and the other one, Block, apart from being a leader in world sport of getting our season back under the way, which other sports have copied, having the guts to make adjustments to a sport that have been in place for 110 years.
Do you reckon a lot of that come from his own, because he's a lover of rugby league, right?
Yeah.
Him sitting back and watching how do I make the game better. Do you reckon it was through him? Or do you reckon it was?
I think listening to the right people and having the guts. At the end of the day, it was coming down to him. Whoever he took notice of and people that would tell him this and the other, it didn't matter. It was his head on the chopping block and his legacy if it didn't work.
I know last year he got there when they had the competition committee, and they meet every year, the competition committee, and it's one of my great frustrations. But you sit there, and he sat in there and listened to all the talk, and back then there was talk about reducing the interchange and doing things like that to try and get the wrestle out of the game and to bring attack and more free-flowing footy back into the game. And he threw it up last year in that meeting, and the coaches and everybody quickly argued him down. And he walked away and he thought, okay. They came up with some pretty good reasons that he didn't have the ammunition to fight back on. But then he sat there and he looked at the first few rounds and he listened to the commentary around the game. And that's when he thought, you know what, bugger this. I'm going to go and I'm going to bring in this 6 again rule to try and speed it up. And what that immediately did, the impact was immediate in the game.
Yep.
And it was immediately better.
Yeah.
And we all sat there and we thought, wow, look at this. And this is what the game can be. Yeah, Matty, I've said this for a long time. I think we need to start pulling rules back rather than putting them in. We actually, why wouldn't you as a game sit down and go, you know what? The game visually looked its best in the 90s.
Yep.
Okay, when we had the I reckon back in then the perfect blend of athleticism and science and all the rest of it. But we've gone down this road. We've tried a few rules. Some haven't worked, but it's like a new tax law. Once a tax law is in, you can't get it out again. And we've been out. That's what the rule book's like. We've put these rules in and haven't pulled them out. But why don't we sit down and look at the rules and actually say, you know what? This is when the game, from an aesthetic point of view, looked great. So why don't we slowly start working back to that?
Do we want to
over-adjudication.
Do we want to tinker with it too much more? Because, mate, actually sitting back and watching the way it is now, blokes are believing in themselves. When you have a look at all the halves and the attacking players are chancing their hand.
Yeah, they are.
And before it was like it's coached out of me. Oh, I'm not going to do it. I'm too nervous nervous to do something.
Everyone's talking about how it's disadvantaged the defensive sides, and that is true. But what it's also done is disadvantage players and teams that want to play structured football.
Yeah.
And the players that have got the
Copycat football.
Yeah, copycat football. And it's the teams that can sit back and play what they see. Melbourne, yes, are very, very structured, but they can play out of the structure.
Thank God the block for a block's gone.
It's gone.
I mean, I was sitting there every week going, mate, please, can you just change it up?
Yeah.
It's still there, but you just got to look down the bottom of the table. The teams are
Still doing it, yeah.
Yeah.
But you've also got to have the personnel to be able to do and implement what, if you're playing that attacking style footy, you've got to have the blokes that can do it.
The AFL Competition Committee has their overriding belief that underwrites everything they do is that the game, whatever rule change they bring in, the game must still look like AFL. They never want to lose that DNA. And so they don't want to go down this track where in 15, 20 years they make subtle change, and they look at it in 20 years' time, and someone who, for example, has been living in Brazil for 20 years comes back and goes, what's this?
It's a new game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
And rugby leagues, I think we need the same mantra. We need to be able to sit there and go, you know what? It needs to be rugby league. And we need all that structure stuff. There's never been a person walk out of the game and say, how good was that?
Yeah.
God,
I wish there was more structure.
More structure, more wrestling.
But I get pulled up every day now, people saying, mate, geez, I love the game.
Well, two of my neighbours, Bob and Rob, and I'm not making it up.
Are they yobbos? No.
Actually, they're really straight-laced blokes. And Bob's from Orange, and he's a huge rugby union man. So I'm talking to him last Saturday, and he goes, Matty, he goes, I'm not even watching the rugby union. He said, I'm just watching the rugby league. I'm blown away by it. I walk around the corner. My wife's taking me over there to some carpet shop. Anyway, that's a different story. I'm sort of getting dragged there. And I walk past, and I go past Rob. And Rob goes, and we're just chatting away, and he says to me, Matty, I in the last 10 years, I've barely watched rugby league, but he said, at the moment, I'm not missing a game.
Yeah.
Wow.
Says everything. Another two teams have been eliminated, fellas, before we go on to chatting about the coaches and the games this weekend. The Roosters rate their season out of 10.
I reckon they were an 8.5 for effort from what they went through and then where they ended up. To me, at times, the last couple of weeks, they've looked down and out and gone. And what I respect about them the most is how they found something. Like, they are champions. I know you don't win back-to-back comps and then fall out, without a whimper. I just love the way that they hung in there.
Just shows you how tough it is to go back-to-back, but to go back-to-back-to-back, because all the players who had been there for that whole campaign, I thought in the last third of the season, looked out on their feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were worn down. And I think there was almost a fragility about the Roosters at the end, not through their own doing. It's just like the concussions like the concussions got Friend, it got Cordner, and it got Keary. Absolutely key to them.
The other thing, when you've won a comp, mate, I can't tell you, we lost 2, but you won one. They won 2 in a row. Everyone's coming for you, mate. Yeah. Everyone gets up and they come for you.
Yeah. But they were there, like I said, I halfway through the season, they were playing a style of footy. They had a style of attack that was really adapted to the new rules.
Full of running,
And just the way that they just played. You talk about teams in and out of structure. They appeared, I don't think they were, but they appeared mostly out of structure.
Their centres was popping up on the same.
Round
roaming,
5
weren't
and they beat the Bulldogs. And the Bulldogs, but Bulldogs went, they had a really crack. But the moment the Roosters got on top, it was one of the best performances of the year. Tedesco was completely untouchable.
Remember, sometimes we'd see the right winger, I think it's Brett Morris. I'd still get him mixed up. You'd see him over on the left side, or the two centres together, or whatever. They started playing that unorthodox type.
As Kenty said, Robbo had said, mate, I'm giving the players some freedom.
Yeah. Hey, what about looking at that, the way the Roosters ended up? I know we're talking about them at the moment, and then I hear during the week that Wayne Bennett didn't flog his side during the COVID and all that sort of stuff. And the Melbourne Cup sort of theory, you don't win the Melbourne Cup in January.
Yeah. Tell you what, when we talk about Wayne, I've got an interesting point about that and how Wayne's willing to hold his nerve on it. Yeah. I give him an 8.5 as well.
Yeah, I do.
Best player. It's sort of. I'm going to say Tedesco. Given what he did for 2/3 of the season, he looked tired towards the end as well.
But I'm nearly going to say Tupou.
Yeah.
Radley
He was
their best
unbelievable.
until he went down.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. Well, he started, and a lot of sides started to copy off it. The old ball playing lock forward. Remember, he was getting on both sides of the ruck in the middle and all that sort of stuff, and playing footy. Once he went down, their options went.
Verrills was a big loss. He was a young bloke on the up and up.
Yeah.
And they lose him.
Yeah.
Parramatta, their season, I gave them 7.5 out of 10. The first half of the season was 9 out of 10, but a good season. Their season was a mirror image of their football in September and October. Good, but poor when it mattered most.
Yeah, hot and cold. Hot and cold. I'll tell you what, they would have learned a great lesson when Moses was taking that shot of goal just to the left of the upright, the right of the upright.
Got to follow.
Do you know what they did? They were all running back the halfway, thinking, "Oh, mate, this is over." So
Nothing to give me.
No, it just goes to show you've got to be ready, haven't you?
Yeah.
I said that was symptomatic of their season. That's them.
Mentality, you mean?
That's not them taking care of the small details.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's what undermined Parramatta's whole season. Just that attention to detail. Where it's funny, you see this when you see players come through, and because they're elite players and they come through the elite coaching, it's almost like you forget
it's a given.
It's
like
a given
little
that's
things.
gonna
Yeah,
happen.
yeah.
But and go back to we'll talk about him later. But Wayne Bennett starts every preseason with the same thing: 3-on-2s.
Fundamental.
Basic, and a lot of players will sit there and they'll be like, who have not worked under Bennett before, new players to the club, or when he goes to a new club, they sit there and they look at each other like, what are we doing now? Mate, I did this in under 14.
Yeah.
Fundamentals.
What are we doing this for now? Well, I'm a first grader.
I reckon he triggers on people who whinge and that too about it.
Yeah, but I don't know how vocal they are, but the thing is, Blocky, what it is, it's about how many times you see a guy now in the game make a break. It's a 2-on-1. He passes too early, or he can't. He'll run the defender over to where he's going to his ball player, where he's got, rather than take him away and then pass. So there's a lot of those little fundamentals that we accept are ingrained, but actually aren't. They aren't, and that's where Parramatta, I think, really fell down this season.
Benji said about Shoonsy, when they went through those really good couple of years, he said, mate, the amount of just simple fundamental 2-on-1, 3-on-2, getting the ball, just passing the ball nice and crisp in front of the bloke you give them the ball to. I heard Michael Jordan once say that, there was a quote Michael Jordan said, when you ignore the fundamentals, the castle falls down.
But even feeling the 3-on-2. Like you got the ball, whether if he comes in, you pass. If he stays out, you run. Just little stuff like that.
Developing instinct through repetition. Isn't it? Mate, Gutho, geez, mate, what a
wow.
Geez,
what a 10 minutes he had. That first, I was going, wow.
He's just improved every single year. I think he was their best player. Nathan Brown at the back end of the year showed how important he is, and Dylan Brown. Just the way he moved on the field, and I know the other night he threw an intercept pass, but he's going to be a really special player.
What about my man?
Very special.
Paulo.
Yeah, what about him?
You know what I loved about him most? And I haven't seen it for a long, long time. So next to the ruck, he's getting tied up and he's getting bashed by 3 blokes, right? All of a sudden he skips out and gets 1-on-1. That's what I like. That's smart.
Yeah.
But I'm sick of getting towed up in here. Watch what I do over here.
Well, here's an example where, people, there was a few years ago under the previous administration where they said, I want to lower the interchange and speed the game. But, no, we can't do that. What about the big blokes? Well, mate, the cream rises to the top. The big blokes, you can do it.
Mobile.
Do they improve, remain or decline next year?
I worry about him improving because of all the media and noise around Moses, the halfback. Mate, all the noise around is, can he get it done? Is he 24 or 25? How old is he?
26.
Is he 26, is he? Mate, I still reckon you could. The thing about if they're going to move players on, which they're talking about, if they're going to move him on, who are you going to get there? Who are you going to put in there?
Yeah, I agree with that. But Block, he's just got to. I think Mitchell's best work now in his future is going to come off the training paddock. Skill wise and all that, he can do all that. He needs to sit down. He needs to sit down with your brother, who's unfortunately been out of the bubble, so couldn't actually get close enough to him. But he needs to sit down with like a great player like Joey and just actually understand what halfback play's about. And that's, to me, that's his next step.
Should he relinquish a little bit of the responsibility to Brown?
Well, Brown's going to be Brown's going to be a special player.
Sure is. Interesting. We spoke about this in the podcast that book. I forget something of tennis. Blokes have got in touch with what is it called, but in the book, when you talk about things like that, and this is an example of what a halfback should bring to a team. As Kenty said, it isn't what you sometimes. It's not just what you bring to the football side. On the field in performance. It's what you do in the sheds before the game, what you bring to training. They're looking to you. If you're going to be the leader and you're going to steer around the park, then you've got to turn up and you've got to walk around and just give everyone energy. It's going to be all right.
He's got to get rid of bagging his own players. You see him all the time. If something goes wrong, he's into them.
They don't like.
So you can't do that.
When Steve Waugh took over as Australian captain, he. You talk to the players at the time. Steve Waugh was one of the boys. Go and have a beer with him. The moment he got named Australian captain, Taylor retired. He got put in a job, and it's a little bit different captaincy in cricket. Captain, you're almost also the coach, so you lead the tour. You're the gaffer when you're on tour. The whole thing. From the moment he was named captain, he took that job to the point where we're going out on test save. We're going out to have a beer. No. The leaders separate. The coaches don't go out and get on the drink with their players after a game. He didn't do that as the captain of the side. He carried himself differently. He wanted the authority to be able to call a bloke and say, "Listen, mate, not good enough," or "Listen, mate, I'm going to sit you down for this test."
And it had the guts to do it to Warney.
Had the guts to do it. Warney split their friendship, but believed it was at the time the right decision. There's probably a lot of argument it wasn't, but he believed in what he believed in and made that decision. And that's I think when you're a leader in the team, you've got to carry yourself a little bit differently. You've got to have an authority there. Yeah, you talk about. I remember talking to players once about Andrew Eddinghausen, and Cronulla were real clean skins when Eddinghausen was captain. And I said to him, mate, blokes, other clubs play up, you blokes never do. And they said, mate, that's because you get the ET glare. And I said, what's the ET glare? They said, mate, if you're in a pub and we're all just having a beer together, and we were in a pub this night having a chat about it, and ET, you start to play up. He said, mate, you just know. He said, you look around. He said, ET's just picked you from across the room. He's looking at you. Doesn't say anything, but the look is, mate, pull your head in. And he said, as soon as that happens to anyone on the team, that such as a respect for him, they just quieten down. Whatever shenanigans they're up to, it just ends.
I'd be happy if ET was glaring at me.
But great captains make light work for the coach.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
they do. And that's Mitchell. Mitchell's got to understand momentum. He's got to understand the speed of the game. Yeah, when they went out against South, they scored those 3 tries. And they got carried away thinking, this is how the game's going to go.
Didn't go back to
and so what they did, they actually played into the South sweet spot. They actually started to play that up-tempo.
That's right. Newcastle did exactly the same thing.
Exactly
Instead of going, righto, let's slow and consolidate
and
here.
just grind.
Yeah.
Let's just grind. And Phil Gould said it the other night, Parramatta play every set like they expect to score. Whereas you've got to just get in the grind sometimes. And, mate, we're going to have a good set. We're just going to put it in the corner and then we're going to tackle for the next 6.
You've only got so much gas in the tank, don't you, Block?
Yeah.
And if you pour too much into your attack, then you're left vulnerable in your defence.
And there's also a frustration when they don't score because they're expecting to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boys, talking about coaches, 4 teams left. Before we preview the games, let's focus on the coaches. Some real interesting people, and they're contrasting guys. Firstly, Ivan Cleary. Kenty, and this is more than just talking about them tactically, talking about as men. I remember last year you and Ivan had your moments.
Yeah, we did.
You did. How's that relationship now?
Yeah, it's all right. Look, we don't talk every week, but we talk. Ivan was under a lot of pressure at the time and made some decisions. He knew where he wanted to get to, and I don't think anyone had a problem with where he wanted to get to, which was back coaching Penrith. But just things that happened along the way. He couldn't be completely truthful when he was still at West Tigers about what his intentions were. So things happened, Matty, that I think everybody in hindsight wishes had eventuated differently. But Ivan's really shown himself. The one thing I dare say, when Ivan went back to Penrith, he had the intention of getting rid of Phil Gould. Okay, now Phil Good, if you remember, sacked him the first time he was there. Said he was tired.
Pretty big scalp to go
Yeah,
up.
it is. And at the time, it was like, mate, that you know, you're poking the bear here.
Yeah,
Like, you realise what's going on. But Ivan went back, and there was a day there essentially where Ivan had a player he wanted I think he wanted to let him go, and Gould re-signed him. And there was just. And Ivan just went in and said, mate, I'm done.
I can't do.
I'm not going to keep working under these conditions. And Penrith said, no, you know what? And they actually moved Gould on. So
it's an argument for people to talk about coaching directors. It's an argument why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Is you want to give not absolute power, but you want to give a coach power, and you've got a bloke above him making decisions, which
You put him in there for a reason too, don't you?
You do.
Thing about coaching directors, thing about coaching, the whole lot, mate. You get the right bloke, and you can have. If you got the two right blokes, it works.
Yeah.
If you got one bloke that's wrong, you've got to recognise that he's wrong, and you've got to move him on. And look, Ivan has shown what he can do when left to his own devices.
A question to you both: do you think Ivan has changed the way they play and his philosophies, or is it just the fact that these brilliant young players have matured, or a little bit of both?
I think a little bit of both. I think that he's gone in with how these guys actually play, and then structured himself around how they play.
Yeah, but that's great coaching.
Yeah.
So you see some coaches, they rock up at a club and they go, right, this is not how I like to play. So they start coaching a style which doesn't suit the roster. Yeah. And what they do is they ask for 3, 4, 5 years, because it often takes 5 years, to actually turn the roster over into the roster that they want to, a type of player they want to coach. Yeah. Ivan's got there, and he has got, some of them you'd say, mate, how can you not coach these kids? They are enthusiastic. Yeah. They're willing to learn. They are highly talented, and they have a history of winning. Yeah. They've come all through their junior football, and they've done nothing but win premierships.
And as the fact they've all come through together, they like each other.
Yeah. Yep.
They love each other.
And all those little things that you're trying to learn with your teammates, a lot of that's already ingrained. Like Luai and Nathan Cleary, they've played so much footy together. They
can play fast.
They complement each other.
They do.
They're happy to sit back and let Nathan, for example, do what he's got to do, and then I'll just play when I'm needed. And then when Luai starts to get on a bit of a roll, Cleary just sits back and says, okay, well, he's on his way, let him go.
Yeah. When you're as good as those two and you're out there playing the game, the coach has got to take some advice off you too. The coach has got to be smart enough to say,
yes,
mate, you guys are out there doing it. What's going on out there? What do we need to do?
But I think Ivan does that. I think Ivan's very much a democratic coach that way. He sits there and, okay, boys, what's going on? What do you feel? Okay, is this working? Let's try this then. Like he's
Malcolm really used to do it. Malcolm really would come to us and sit there, and we'd watch a video of the game, then of the opposition, and he'd turn around and say, what do you reckon about these blokes? How are we going to beat them? And everyone would sit, mate, even the most, like a bloke like Owen Craig in his first season. Yeah. Owen would say, mate, I've played against this bloke before. Like we do that. It's a good point.
Yeah. What about the Panthers too? If you have a look at them, they've all come through together. You think by getting, and they haven't made the grand final yet, but if they do make the grand final and they go on and win it, all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, mate, this is easy. You're 20-year-olds, and how long before you actually make it again unless you're
that's right. You always think, Timmy Brasher would have said, I've missed out in that grand final. I've got plenty of tomorrow.
Never played in another one.
Yeah.
Well, the history of Penrith is that they haven't got back after they've won a premiership, at least that current roster.
Yeah. Nathan Cleary sort of mirrors his old man as far as temperament. A story about Ivan, 1997, we're playing the Roosters at home. It's an absolute bog, ankle-deep mud, pissing down rain. And we're leading them 12-6, and there's about 30 seconds to go, as Andrew Walker does, chips over the top, gets the ball back, feeds his winger. They go the length of the field, score in the corner as the siren goes. So we're standing behind the line. We're leading 12-10. Siren's gone. The Roosters blokes are all milling around just past the half. We're sitting in the corner, and Ivan puts the ball in the mound, and we're going, "Fucking good luck." And we're giving it to him. Good luck. Oh, mate, your shoelaces are undone. And the bump, just giving it to him non-stop. And he just put the ball back, turned around, looked at us, and we just banged it over and went, Fuck you blokes.